You're watching NFL Daily, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. That's Trace Gerard. It is day number 2 of free agency frenzy. We are here to catch you up to speed with everything you need to know of all the signings that have happened so far to this point. Trace, day 1 was exciting, but day 2 has certainly delivered.
Absolutely. I mean, there's still some big-time free agents that could go inside, but there have been some big-time dollars spent today. And this is why you subscribe, because we're trying to get to 367,000 subscribers. So if you want to be a smarter fan around the NFL, the NBA, college sports, whatever, we're your one-stop shop that's going to make it all happen. So I encourage you to join our family. It's 100% free. And hey, who doesn't like talking ball 365 days a year? Tyler, let's break down this free agency tracker, brother.
There we go. Let's start off with the New York Jets. Kinlaw, Taylor headed to New York. Good ad with Kinlaw. And then with Tyrod Taylor, whatever you want to call him. The Jets did not have a backup quarterback last year. Aaron Rodgers, more than likely, not going to play all 17 games this year, if we're going to be honest. That's a good security blanket for New York now.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrod Taylor, I like that. Like you said, a good security blanket. This is a dude who's played in the Big Apple before. He's played at MetLife a handful of times, so he has familiarity up there, so I don't think it's going to be much of an adjustment like you see some of these guys moving from, somewhere down south where it's really nice and humid to somewhere up north where you might have to deal with a little bit of snow and a little bit of cold weather. But Sam Darnold, he's another backup quarterback that got a new deal, 1 year, $10 million with the Minnesota Vikings. I still expect them to go and draft a quarterback, but it's a good backup option nonetheless. What do you think about Aaron Jones to the Vikings?
Aaron Jones staying within the division, found out he was unemployed yesterday, getting cut by the Packers, goes to Minnesota. And with Sam Darnold there, it's interesting. You look at Minnesota, this is a team that is not tanking. They're trying to salvage what they have here. I don't think they're going to be that great of a football team. I think they're going to be lucky to kind of make the postseason. Aaron Jones isn't a bad signing, but this is a team that I don't think is going to be that great. I think the Cousins loss is a big deal.
Absolutely, and they're going to be in a division that, Jordan Love, he was impressive last year. He was a good player, and I don't know if I trust a rookie quarterback to go and win the division right off the bat, but if you have Justin Jefferson, hey, anything is possible on the offensive side of the ball. Cleveland Ferrell and Marcus Mariota headed to the nation's capital. Wow. That's a good move for Dan Quinn, if you ask me. What do you think?
Commanders have a lot of work to do.
Yep.
But with the most salary cap of any team in football, it's a step in the right direction. And Ferrell's shown some flashes of brilliance. We'll see what he can do there. And then Marcus Mariota, I have to imagine that means that Sam Howell is probably done in Washington there. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston.
J-Bo! What's up, man?
He's off to Cleveland to go back up to Deshaun Watson. I like this situation for Jameis Winston because Deshaun has something left to prove, obviously. He hasn't looked great his first 2 seasons there. Jameis has never been in a good situation in Tampa or in New Orleans here. Mm-hmm. If he gets the chance, this would be his best chance to showcase his ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jameis Winston going into this offseason, he's been very vocal about how he wants to be a starting quarterback and wants to win a Super Bowl. And Deshaun Watson, he's only played in 12 games over the last 3 seasons. And I know that the numbers might be a little underwhelming with Jameis Winston, and that touchdown to interception ratio is nothing to run home about. However, he is a player that's fun, that's entertaining, that's great for the locker room. And honestly, if you can trust Jameis Winston to be your backup quarterback, I don't think they're bringing back Joe Flacco, but I think that he can still find success with weapons like a Nick Chubb if they bring him, or if he can be healthy and he can play at a high level, like an Amari Cooper and like a David Njoku. Mike Gesicki, a tight end that's headed to, or from the New England Patriots to the Cincinnati Bengals, and Joe Mixon got traded. What are your thoughts there, Tyler?
So this was interesting because we were told last night that Mixon was getting cut, and then we find out this morning that he gets traded. The Houston Texans already have a good run game. You add Joe Mixon to the mix here. We know that Mixon's a very good receiving back as well. Texans, they lost some pieces here in free agency, but this is a good way to kind of salvage things. And help out C.J. Stroud here. I like the fit for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, absolutely. Houston needed a running back. I honestly figured that they would go with a guy like Derrick Henry and try and bring in a big-time name, but this Joe Mixon move is really good. The Bengals were expected to actually cut Mixon, but then they ended up making a trade happen with the Houston Texans. Our Texans host here at Chat Sports, Jeremy Chuggs, was a big fan of this move. But we want to ask you this question. Which team has had the best free agency so far? We're only, 2 days into it, Tyler. But there's been a lot of moves. There's been a handful of teams that have been very inactive. Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, get off your yacht. Which team has had the best free agency? We want you to get down in the comment section. Tyler, Shaq Barrett, Darnell Mooney. What do you think there?
Shaq Barrett, nice help for the Dolphins defense. They certainly could use it. That team trying to take the next step up in their division. Darnell Mooney, I like for the Atlanta Falcons. Here's a Falcons team that brings in Cousins, already has guys like Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and company there, and Drake London. Now you get another weapon, and Mooney gets out of that just awful Chicago offensive system. There's a chance for him to step up and perform at a high level. It wasn't too long ago he had 1,000 yards back in 2021. I think the Falcons, with the moves they've made, they got to be considered some of the biggest winners so far. I expect them not only to contend for the South, but also be one of the best teams in the NFC.
No doubt. It's hard to look at the Atlanta Falcons and not consider them a favorite to win the division, which is a weak one with the Panthers, Saints, and Buccaneers. But the big move of the day, Derrick Henry finally put pen to paper with the Baltimore Ravens. He's teaming up with Lamar Jackson, headed out to Baltimore, and the King. I don't think we'll ever see him have a 2,000-yard season. But when you're averaging over 4 yards per carry over the last handful of years and you're getting double-digit touchdowns, it's hard to look at this as a bad move no matter where he went.
Yeah, and the contract situation's team-friendly. You're looking at up to $20 million when you factor in incentives, and he's still playing at a high level. I mean, I know that he's another year older, but he still had over 4 yards a carry last year, and the Ravens with Todd Monken as OC, they want to cut back on Lamar running the football. What better way to do that than to have a back you can trust like Derrick Henry, a future Hall of Famer there on that offense. And with Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews there, I think you got 3 future Hall of Famers right there in Baltimore leading the way offensively.
No doubt.
Irv Smith going to Kansas City, played alongside Travis Kelce at that tight end spot. Meanwhile, some of the other names included on this list, Malcolm Roach goes to the Denver Broncos, 2 years, up to $8 million, reuniting with Sean Payton.
Yep, he was a really interesting player for the Saints in that defensive line rotation. Obviously, we haven't seen him be a starting player for the Saints. However, he was effective as a run stopper, and New Orleans really liked him, not just on the field, but in the locker room as well. He was a guy who, whenever he was in the locker room, he was carrying a speaker around and trying to keep the energy up, having a lot of fun, and the Saints locker room loved that. So Sean Payton getting a reunion with one of his former players. The New Orleans to Denver pipeline does continue, but Michael Dunn, George Odom as well, bringing in some new money. 1-year deal, details to be announced, and George Odom 2 years, up to $10 million. So, Tyler, I've been enjoying doing this with you.
We've had a great time today.
Absolutely.
And we're not done by any stretch of the imagination. If you've been following our live coverage, spam me in the chat. If you haven't, it's not too late. You can still join us live on Chat Sports for continuing coverage of free agency frenzy. Type me in the chat. Join us, me and Trizzy, along with the rest of the Chat Sports crew on our Chat Sports main channel for continuing live coverage of free agency frenzy. We got you covered. Meanwhile, Patrick Queen with a total heel move as he goes from the Baltimore Ravens to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 3-year, $41 million deal. Coming off the best season of his career, 133 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. But the big question becomes, well, the deal is pretty reasonable for a guy that was valued at about $18 million to settle for about $14. What player is Patrick Queen now? His best years were alongside Roquan Smith, and Roquan Smith leading the way and being the guy. Now you bring him into Pittsburgh, away from Roquan Smith, away from the Mike McDonald defense. Can Patrick Queen be the same player that he was in Baltimore? I don't know if I'm going to be honest with you, Trace.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to get back to that level of production for Patrick Queen. However, he is a good player, and he can make a positive impact in Pittsburgh. I like him teaming up with the likes of Mika Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt. I think that that's a good unit, and Mike Tomlin, I think, is going to be able to have him be prepared. If you give credit where it's due, he always has the Steelers ready to play and ready to win. But also, let's talk about Drew Lock headed to the New York Football Giants. Feels like they're still in the market for, some players, but Daniel Jones getting a backup. Drew Lock is a quality maybe backup. We haven't gotten to see a ton of them, but maybe him lining up in the Big Apple could be productive. What do you think there, Tyler?
He had a big moment last year leading the Seahawks to a Monday night win over Philadelphia. And this is a guy that's a former second-round pick, Lee Summit, Missouri product that has shown flashes of brilliance at times. But we've seen some bad from Drew Lock, too. Personally, though, I like him better than I do Daniel Jones. I think the leash is going to be short on Daniel Jones, and if he struggles, Drew Lock's going to get an opportunity there. Meanwhile, Shelby Harris staying in Cleveland, 2 years, $9 million deal. The Browns had one of the best defenses in football last year, and they're trying to run it back of some sort. It's going to be a team led by their defense once again.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Cleveland Brown defense is half the reason they found the success that they did. Of course, Joe Flacco coming in and playing Superman towards the end of the season. That was an awesome story. But let's call a spade here. Joe Flacco was good, but the Browns defense was great, and they are a big reason why they were so successful in the back half of the season, especially, but throughout the whole season. I mean, they were plagued with injuries. Nick Chubb went down very, very early. You had David Njoku get his face burned. I mean, there were so many injuries, so many distractions that could have derailed this team, but the defense stayed, nose on the grindstone and kept the thing moving and made things happen. But let's talk about Kenny Moore, because this is a really awesome deal for the Colts. He was one of the best slot corners in the league. And to be honest, I thought that he was going to have a very high market across the league. Maybe he wanted to stick around in Indianapolis. 3 years, $30 million deal. Do you think that's a good value for Indianapolis?
I think it's a really good move for Indianapolis. This is a team that overachieved in 2023 and now trying to take that next step to compete in the AFC. Very important for them to have a guy like Kenny Moore involved to stay with that Indianapolis team there. I think it's a very good move on their part. A couple more to get to. The New England Patriots. They keep Josh Uche with a 1-year, $3 million deal. This one, I think it's a bit of a shocker. For one, I thought he was worth a whole lot more than $3 million.
Yeah.
And two, to stay in New England here, New England's a mess right now. I thought he could have gone to a much better football team for more money. That one's a bit of a surprise.
No doubt. And A'Shawn Robinson, he's going to shore up the defensive line for the Carolina Panthers. He's a veteran that's been around for a while. And at the end of the day, I think it's a good move for Carolina to bring in a veteran. But Keyshawn Nixon sticking around in Green Bay. And Devontae Parker, he's trading in that red, white, and blue for some Kelly green and white. What do you think about that move? 1 year for less than $5 million feels like a great value for the Eagles.
Devontae Parker, this is somebody that played really well a couple of years ago with the Miami Dolphins. Goes to the New England Patriots, didn't really have consistent quarterback play. Now gets to play with, I think, an elite quarterback in Jalen Hurts here. I think Devontae Parker will play a significant role in that Philadelphia Eagles offense. I think you'll see his numbers similar to what he did in 2020 and 2021 as opposed to what we saw of a down year in 2023. Also on the list, Nicholas Morrow with a 1-year deal with the Buffalo Bills there. Nice find there. Jordan Elliott going to the San Francisco 49ers, 2 years, $10 million. John Lynch and company, they are doing whatever they can to not take a step back.
Absolutely.
They do not rebuild. They reload in San Fran.
No doubt. I mean, the 49ers have one of the best rosters in the NFL on both sides of the ball. They're a complete football team, and John Lynch, like you said, alongside Kyle Shanahan, they have a Super Bowl window, and it's still open. As long as Brock Purdy is on that rookie contract, they can spend money elsewhere. So I like this move for San Francisco, bringing in a nice player in Jordan Elliott. 2 years, $10 million. Doesn't feel like it's a massive payday for that kind of player as well. Tyler.
Before we go, I want to make
subscribe.
sure you subscribe to the channel for continuing off-season coverage throughout free agency. We're talking trades. We're Also getting you ready for the draft as well. You get more of me and Trizzy and the rest of our Chat Sports gang as well. For the latest happenings across the National Football League, subscribe now for free. We'll see you next time right here on NFL Daily.